Hello, I am Crow, and welcome to the second episode of building Jumpmoore Kingdom! If this is your first time watching, I warmly welcome you to this beautiful project. I highly recommend checking out the first episode I made almost a year ago. We've made an absurd amount of progress since then, and hopefully the upload schedule won't be this atrocious. This series is essentially a documented journey of me and my team going all out creatively to build the single best RPG and parkour server in the freaking world. I'm dedicating my life to give you the most fun and unique experience our unhinged minds can craft. Get it? Because mine and Crag. And I invite you to join our journey and become part of this growing community. Before we dive in, let me give you one inspirational message. I'm never going to stop creating. I'm never going to stop pushing myself. I'm going as big as I possibly can in this world as long as I'm breathing. If you ever see me doing otherwise, I'm chopping my left testicle. Every time I'm online, assume I'm building something or welcoming someone, whether in-game or not. And the smoke alarm, yeah, it's here to stay. Previously in our last devlog video, we talked about the genesis of this server. We built Mapletown, the first city of Jumpmoore Kingdom. A humble little town that loves jumping, frolicking, and doing questionable cult activities underground. We built the first dungeon, like this one, called Slubber Sinkhole. The first dungeon that the player will encounter, probably. Then we built the Royal Garden near Fort Syrup. We polished the server and finally released it to the public on September 21st. The project started with 4 people, including myself. By release day, over a year later, we had grown to 7 people. And since then, the team has grown again. I'll introduce everyone and explain what we have been doing in chronological order. So what the hell have we been doing? We kicked off the next major update, Stonecrag City. Planning was simple. When a player exits a city or a town, in this case Mapletown, they will be met with a wilderness. All wilderness will have a path that may lead to a city. The city we want to build next is Stonecrag City. And we had a vision for it, which was a massive city hanging off the side of a mountain. First, we had to build a mountains themselves, because none of this terrain existed if it wasn't obvious. We basically drew a circle and an X and said, yep, these are gonna be the mountains. When the mountains were done, and yes, they kind of look like penises a little bit, I drew the blueprint for the city, then boom! The city existed. Anticlimactic, I know. I didn't record the process because I didn't have replay mod installed during that time. But what you're seeing here is actually the first version. A basic shell with no details, no interiors, no decoration. But it was a start. We went with an elegant theme of tightly packed buildings supporting each other. And inside the mountains, we carved a long, rough cave system that connects to the city. According to plan, this cave system is going to become the Stonecrag City Market, as well as connect to dungeons and parkour courses. We got ahead of ourselves and built the first dungeon of the area, Miner's Peril, made entirely by Casey. It's the second hardest dungeon on the server and surprisingly small. Casey began working on interiors, starting with one of the horizontal houses I built. It's one of my favorite interiors he's ever made, so of course I had to give a personal tour. Now this is the only time in the video where I'll be touring an interior in detail, since there is so much to show, but I'll probably be making separate videos for city tours. After that, he built the hoist house interior, the first building players enter after taking this long elevator. Then came the cartography shop, the library, and then the apothecary. That. Meanwhile, I started adding greenery to the Stonecrag region. Tall trees for both the forest and the cliffs. I pasted trees everywhere and called it a day, knowing we would refine the area later, of course. Near the Mapletown gate, Casey built a beautiful small house and a vineyard, which he didn't like, so he deleted it. Back in the cave system, we decorated it with rails, support beams, TNT, crates, minecarts, barrels, the whole mining vibe. Casey continued with interiors, the mayor's house, which is the biggest building in the city, the inn penthouse, the miners' quarters, and some NPC homes. Then came the dungeon marathon. Build Monskull Cave, a medium difficulty skeleton-themed dungeon introducing the void mechanic. Originally, falling teleported you 10,000 blocks down to die in the real void, but that got annoying and a bit laggy, so now it just kills you instantly. Next dungeon was Stone Pass, a low-ceiling cavern dungeon inside the Stonecrag Mountains. It is actually one of the first dungeons that the player encounters when entering Stonecrag. This dungeon was followed by Rostuck, a dangerous mine-themed dungeon with broken platforms and lots of verticality. One of the few things we we like to include in our parkour courses is different paths. Despite us trying to make them equal, a lot of the times we don't actually know which path is the fastest, but we embrace that. It offers replayability and exploration. In some dungeons, the whole gimmick is to choose wherever you want to go, but that may turn into an unclear and confusing path, which we also embrace in some other dungeons. Around this time, Matt wakes up from his slumber and sets up our Modernth mod pack, which actually got approved. It includes continuity and performance mods so your potato PC can run our server. Okay, so editor's note, the mod pack is actually outdated and won't work, so we heavily suggest you to install a connected textures mod such as continuity and a performance mod such as sodium. Thank you. Moving on to the wilderness, we built our first bandit outpost, one of many throughout Jumpmore Kingdom that we will be building. The style was rough wooden structures, tall walls, and high vantage points. Casey handled the interiors for the brewing house, main house, sleeping quarters, and a campfire with a roasted pig. And inside the bandit outpost, you can access a dungeon full of traps and bandits called Ulfred's Watch, one of many bandit outpost dungeons. 2 more dungeons followed: Spider's Ditch, a spider-themed dungeon weaving in and out of the mountains of Stonecrag, and Pip's Thumb, a tiny mountain with a short parkour course that looks like a thumb, hence Pip's Thumb. Who's Pip? I don't know, don't ask. After that, you're not gonna believe what we built. We built an entire island. Yeah, I know, a drastic change away from Stonecrag City, but also our solution to players refusing to read anything. When we made the server public, players had no idea what to do. Kush the wizard literally stood in front of the spawn with a giant click me sign, telling players that blue flowers lead to dungeons. Behind him, a path of blue flowers leading to the first dungeon. But players ignored everything. They wandered around until starvation. They asked what to do. They set world records for leaving the server instantly. We realized that players had no clue what they were getting into nor how things worked around here. So my team and I decided to build Tudo Island, a forced tutorial experience. Players now spawn in front of a shithole, literally, greeted by Kush, that teaches them the mechanics step by step onto the reach the boat to Mapletown. And the result, players' retention actually skyrocketed, and then I finally slept peacefully. And while we were at Mapletown, I decided to build a parkour course around a hot air balloon called Balloon Bonanza, the most annoying course I've ever made, according to our newly joined playtester, Humbled. Said that the jumps relied on lucky tick timings, which my ass did not know what that was at that time. We learned to not repeat the same mistake again, and also decided to still keep the course since it made it special. Moving towards Stonecrag, we built Flow Cove, the first cavern dungeon introducing power blocks. Power blocks are basically colored terracotta blocks that give a special effect when you stand on them. Green is jump boost, blue is speed, purple is slow falling, and pink is levitation. We also already make use of other terracotta blocks, like blue being a dungeon checkpoint, orange being a world spawn point, and red being redstone circuitry. Then we made Woodlank, the first hidden abandoned mine dungeon we built. The uniqueness of this dungeon is that the player makes his way up, unlike an actual mine where you go explore depths. Remember that one small house Casey built earlier, close to the Mapletown gate? He decided to transform it into a beekeeper instead. He added a bee farm, worked on the interior, made a basement, and added an NPC. Now this next dungeon we built is a crazy one, called Pip's Peak. Not to be confused with Pip's Thumb. No, this is his big brother, Pip's Peak, the tallest mountain in the world, with a massive parkour course inside and around it. It took Humbled, our player tester, 5 minutes to speedrun it, while it took me and my dev over an hour. We didn't even finish it, by the way. And even though it's a hard difficulty and a long climb, it's fun. Momentum carried us into our second Dwarven Ruin dungeon, themed around cranes. The first Dwarven Ruin dungeon we built was located in the Royal Garden, an area behind and only accessible through Fort Syrup. We like the idea of incorporating a bunch of Dwarven Ruin dungeons throughout Jumpmore Kingdom, and this second one was as overwhelming and maze-like like the first one. In the second dungeon, we introduced the 2-button mechanic to open a massive gate, but instead of actually opening it, we teleported the player to a copy of the dungeon where the gate is actually open. Multiplayer problems require multiplayer solutions. Next came Slimed Out and Sloppy Tops, both being slime-themed dungeons. And before you ask why it's called Sloppy Tops, it's because slime is sloppy and tops because you jump from tall heights. Thank you. Sloppy Tops is located inside of a mountain close to the Mapletown wall. Not to be confused with another dungeon that is on the other side of the same wall, which is also a slime-themed dungeon. And then we got Slimed Out being accessible by talking to our boy Kush, who you can find sitting on a log by a path, being a few blocks away from the beekeeper. Kush will offer you to teleport you to Slimed Out, where everything is green and bouncy. Next up is Philfall, a dropper plus lava cavern. Personally, this one isn't that detailed looking, but it is the first dungeon where we incorporate a cool dropper, which won't be the only one to include one. A dungeon Casey built was Sojourn Crypt, probably one of the most detailed looking dungeons with a secret end run shop after completion. But good luck getting to it because this dungeon is a hard one. Located in the middle of the wilderness, the entrance is this Skyrim dungeon looking entrance. I reorganized the building team with a rank hierarchy to streamline communication, inspired by a military chains of command. To set an example, a newcomer to the building team would be considered an apprentice, with a rank of BT1, short for building team rank 1. This title can be more specific depending on what they specialize in. So if they specialize in story writing, they would be called an apprentice writer. Our developer Antoine even made it so you can proudly show your title as a surname in-game. Moving on to the next dungeon I built was Granite Keep, a granite stronghold using custom textures made by Stefan J2, creator of the popular texture pack Better Vanilla Building. He isn't part of the team, but we did get permission from him to use and modify his texture pack for our server. We built him a shrine as compensation, so shout out to him. Editor's note again, so this is also why you need a connected textures mod, because we heavily use a lot of his connected textures. The next build we did was a medieval caravan shop with interiors made by Casey. It has an NPC willing to trade trinkets. He's a bit short and apparently the oldest person ever. We built his spire, a creeper infested cave close to the Stonecrag gate, which we also built. A cool little feature that Antoine added was area messages that show up when you enter an area. The next thing I did was to expand the wilderness area beyond this river to make the surrounding areas more consistent looking. The wilderness beyond this river is not actually accessible yet, but we do have plans in the future. We built a broken bridge and added an NPC being mad at it. He assumes this was work of the bandits, of course. We then revamped the paths and we added a stone to snow mountain gradient. I designed the Stonecrag update logo on Workbench. Then came another dungeon called Shattered Shafts, another mine themed dungeon located right beside the bandit outpost. A story we made why this wasn't seized by them was because the mine is actually filled with monsters and pretty dangerous to traverse. This dungeon is also the first one to include an elevator, taking inspiration from Elden Ring elevators where it's actually optional to either take it or jump down and die. Smooth Stone Alley is a very short dungeon where the walls feel like they're closing in on you. This dungeon is actually located in the very edge of Stonecrag City, and inside the Stonecrag areas we did Mineralized Hollow, a massive crystal dungeon accessible by boat only. Now you can't actually ride boats in the server, but what you can do to enter this dungeon is to ask for a ride from this NPC that's in front of the Stonecrag City docks. And if you're asking yourself why the player couldn't just swim there, the player actually dies when they step into the water. Lore wise, the player can't swim. Mary Root Hollowed followed. Probably the best looking Lust dungeon I've built. It has a lot of areas you go through, power blocks, and an amazing view of the whole Stonecrag area. And then close to this dungeon, Subarctic Overgrowth came, a lush dungeon made by Casey himself. But this one transitions to a snow area up in the mountains that the player needs to pass through. Oh, and there's also a Yeti. We then built Thorn Vault beneath Peeps Peak. Thorn Vault is one of those confusing parkour courses where you have to make your own path, or that's what it looks like, because there is actually a specific path that the player has to take. Then Plunge Line was built, a dungeon filled with chains and hanging platforms. This is one of my favorite gimmicky dungeons because it is so simple yet too much to process when you first see this dungeon. It's fun, it has multiple paths to take, and it's also cool looking when we add the void instead of lava or water. This dungeon is located inside the mountains through the Stonecrag City. You actually have to take an elevator to get down there. We gave hostile mobs red nameplates for clarity. We like showing what mob you're encountering in this world, especially since we're gonna be adding a shit ton of mobs, just like any RPG game. Around this time, we welcomed another player tester, Gaminator, not to be confused with our assistant Gator XL. Gaminator would be in charge of helping with out-of-bounds checks and dungeon feedback. This guy actually thought of every single way of how the player could get out, and I mean, holy, I thought we did a pretty good job, but he had counted damage boost, crazy jump techniques, and some niche exploits. So shout out to Gaminator. We built Hobo's Nook number 4, handmade themed parkour course hidden under Stonecrag. We give it a number series because this would be one of many hobo nooks the player will encounter. These hobo nooks will also have some lore written somewhere, which by the way, all story and lore is written by Beechers. Beechers was one of the first people to join the team since we started working on the second update, and sometime later we welcomed Movable Acorn. Both of these would be in charge to build lore and help with writing stories. So every time you see an NPC message or a lonely lecture book, it was most probably written by them. So shout out to these two guys. Then came Fungo Fracture, the hardest dungeon yet, built with the help of Humboldt. The theme was a brown mushroom cave, and it is located near the Big Wilderness River, the one with the broken bridge. Going back to Mapletown, we added Syrup Scaffold Tower. I know, cool name, right? A parkour course with the theme of an unfinished tower interior, located inside of one of Fort Syrup's towers. Within the Stonecrag Mountains, we built Splinter Step, a fence-only parkour course. This parkour course is accessible through the top of the Stonecrag city mines. I then updated the biomes for the area for better environmental textures. You will now notice small flowers on leaves and grass. The leaves and grass are also a bit greener, barely noticeable, but yeah. We then added a leather worker's cabin, a lonely shop house that resides by the lakes of Stonecrag. There's an NPC there that sells a backpack, and holy shit, a working backpack. Built by Antoine and textured by Casey. He also worked on the interior, of course. Going back to Mapletown, once again, we built another dungeon, Lichen Maw. Lichen themed dungeon with floating lichen bubbles. I wanted a way to incorporate some sort of floating blocks in Jumpmore, and thought lichen bubbles would fit perfectly. They're basically barrier blocks surrounded by a lichen. Can't wait to use them more in the future when we start combining themed dungeons. We then revamped Miner's Pearl, one of the first Stonecrag dungeons. We thought it was a little too short and could use some improvement with the help and feedback of Humboldt, since it was a very hard dungeon. I added trash cans throughout the areas. The reason why trash cans are important is because players can't actually drop items. The reason for this was to actually prevent players from ruining other players' progression. And even though it's a bit annoying sometimes to deal with it, we did think of a better solution to deal with the progression issue while also making players drop items. But until we get to that implementation, players will have to rely on trash cans. We also made it into a command if a player can't find one nearby. We added NPC purpose icons. Blue skull means dungeon teleport, and yellow means a teleport to a non-dungeon area. I improved better crop visuals with clever block tricks. We then transformed Stonecrag City's open mines into markets and homeless spots with homeless NPCs, which lore-wise, this city has no medium class. It's divided into poor and wealthy. The wealthy people living inside the houses, and the poor folks barely making a living in the open mines, forced to dwell deeper into the dungeon mines and die. It's cold, it's dirty, and it's a sad place. Going back to Mapletown, twice again, we built a massive basement dungeon under Maria's house, rumored to be tied to a cult. Theme is a basement that's in the middle of a renovation, with multiple paths and mobs in the way. We added spawn points throughout the new areas, and then Casey finishes a new dungeon called Charot Descent, the deepest mine-themed dungeon in the server so far. It's so deep that it transitions into a lava madness with burnt pillars and supports, overtaken by the ash. This dungeon was also the longest it took to create, but what took a lot of our time was this unique minecart segment of the dungeon. It's a roller coaster that the player must take to reach the end, but we did not foresee the complications this would bring. Oh my god. To make looping minecarts work, we had to make the minecarts collisionless and force the players to take the whole ride, while also making them not affect nor control the speed. Because apparently Minecraft's minecart physics treat an occupied cart differently from an empty one. The solution? Command block magic. We simply made the player ride an invisible armor stand. We made the armor stand very tiny to prevent the player looking like it's floating. And happy ending, right? Wrong! There were over 5,000 entities. These armor stands were the culprit. For comparison, this is like 1 or 2 armor stands, and here are like 5,000 in this single spot. Like, I'm pretty sure black holes form with that much compacted density. Of course, we forgot to kill the armor stands when the rides ended, but with that fixed and out of the way, this beautiful dungeon was finished. And to top everything off, I built one last dungeon, Ladder Fever, a ladder themed backrooms inspired nightmare. Accessible through a Kush teleport, he's located chilling in front of the open mines entrance. That dungeon, of course, marked the completion of all major structures and dungeons, just days before celebrating our first year anniversary since public release. The team grew, of course, movable acorn and features on lore, Antoine coding, Gator Excel assisting builds, Tazik providing emotional support, Casey doing the interiors, Humble and Gaminator testing and bound-proofing the map, and Matt being Matt. After celebrating, we continued to polish Stonecrag. I worked on the trailer, and we released the update on January 3rd, 2026, meaning this whole update took another year to create, but we were sure happy to be working together when we had the time. Right after release, we immediately began working on the next major update, which I'll be making a video very soon, probably, maybe. I am grateful for my team and for every player who gave feedback. Please join our Discord to share your thoughts and follow our journey. We are active and we will welcome you with open arms. I have also started streaming our building sessions on Twitch, so please come hang out or whatever. If you would like to experience this server yourself, the IP is plate.jumpmore.net. Version is 1.21.8, and that's all for now. I will see you in the next episode of Building Jumpmoore Kingdom! Oh my god!